everyone, today we're going to look at how we calculate the equation of a line using a graph and also using a table of values. So I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to have it in the form y equals mx plus c. So in this form, our m is our gradient. So that's the slope of our line. So it could be positive if the slope is going up. It could be negative if the slope is going down. And our plus c is our y-intercept. So that's where our line cuts through the y-axis. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so here I've got a graph. And what I want to do is I want to be able to figure out what my gradient is and what my y-intercept is just by looking at this graph without filling in a table of values yet. Let's see if we can do it just by looking at our graph. So I'm looking for the m and I'm looking for the c. Now, because I know that a y-intercept is where my line cuts across my y-axis, and remember that this is our y-axis and this is our x-axis. So straight away, I know that my c is wherever this line cuts through this axis. So here I can see that my line passes through this y-axis at -1. So it's going to be y equals something x plus something. Okay? So I'm just trying to fill in my m and trying to fill in my c. And now I know that my c is -1 because that's where my line cuts through my y-axis. So I'm going to put that in there. Fill in this blank. So it becomes -1 at the end here. And now I don't need to have this plus here anymore because this -1 overrules the plus, but I'll deal with that in a second. Now I want to figure out what my gradient is. So straight away, without having to do any counting or whatever, I can see that my gradient is sloping upwards. So if I was to walk from my first most left point to my most right point, I'd be walking uphill. That means that I have a positive gradient. So I know that this is going to be a positive number. So I'm just going to put that there to remind myself that it's a positive number. I don't have to put that in when I write my final equation. So I know it's positive. Whereas if my line was sloping downwards, I'm just going to draw like a little pretend line that we're not going to use. Say I had a line that was sloping downwards like that, that would have a negative gradient. So my number would start with like a -3 or -4 or something. So that would be a negative gradient if it's sloping down. So think about it, if you were to walk along that line, would you be walking up a hill or down a hill? So if you're walking up, it's positive. If you're walking down, it's negative. Perfect. So here, I want to start counting how many I'm going across by and how many I'm going up by. So when I move from this point to this point here, I'm going across 1, because it goes from 1 to 2, so that's 1. And then how many am I going up by? So I'm going from 1 to 3, so that means I'm going up by 2. And the same thing here, I'm going across 1 and up 2. So my gradient is what I'm going up by over what I'm going across by. In other words, we call it rise over run. I'm counting how many it's rising up by how many it's going across by. And in this case, my up value is 2 and my across value is 1. So 2 over 1, I don't need to bother writing as a fraction. It's just the number 2. So here we go. My gradient of this line is 2 because for every 1 I go across, I go up 2. So when I do my rise over run, I get 2. And there we go. We have just figured out the equation of this line. Let's rewrite it here. So y equals, I don't need to bother putting this plus. So it's 2x, and then I've got plus minus, which means the minus overrules the plus. So my equation is 2x minus 1. And there we go. We have calculated the equation of our line just by looking at our picture. Okay, now let's fill in a table of values and see if we can come up with this same equation using a table of values. So let me rub this out and we'll pretend that we haven't just solved it already. So I want to fill in this table of values using my picture. Sometimes you'll be given just the table of values with no picture. When I say picture, I mean a graph, of course. But in this case, I'm going to fill it in. So when x is -1, What's my y? It is minus 3. Okay? When x is 0, my y is minus 1. So what I'm doing is I'm finding x, each of these numbers along the x-axis, and then I'm writing underneath what number it is along the y-axis. So that's how we plot, that's how we fill in a table of values. So now when x is 1, across here, what number do I go up to? I'm going up to 1. When x is 2, y is 3. Okay, when x is 3, y is 5. Cool. Now, from this table of values, we can figure out what our gradient and y-intercept is. Because our y-intercept is telling us it's asking us, what is y when x is 0? So when x equals 0, y is minus 1. Okay, cool. Now I've got to figure out, what are they going up by? From here to here, and then from here to here, and then from here to here, and then from here to here. What are they going up by? So from here to here, I know that's 2, it's plus 2. From there to there, it's plus 2, and plus 2, and plus 2, because it's a straight line, they'll all be the same number. So if they're going up by plus 2, that means that my gradient is plus 2. And there we go, we have just figured out the equation of a line based on a table of values. Let's rewrite this underneath. Y equals, I don't need to bother having this plus in there, so it'll just be 2x. I don't need to bother having this plus in there, so it'll be 2x minus 1. Awesome. So, moral of this story. If your line slopes down, you know that your number's going to have a negative in front. So, it'll have a negative gradient. So you might count it and stuff, and your rise over run might tell you that it is a 2, but if your line is sloping down, you know you need to put a negative in front. Okay, cool. That's the first thing. Second thing we need to know is, if we are just looking at the picture, we are looking at our rise over our run to calculate the gradient. So how many is it going up by, and how many is it going across by? Okay, and then also, where does our line cut through our y-axis? And then when we're doing it from a table of values, straight away, without having to do any math, whatever y is when x is 0, that's straight away going to be my y-intercept. And then I just figure out, what are they going up by? Or if it's negative, what are they going down by? And that'll be our m. That will be our gradient. Thank you for watching.